DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Haefele. We are back on the live shows coming at you every single day. AJ, how was your time off? Did you have a good time up in Winnipeg?
It was good, man. We went to Ontario one day. Nice. I got to enjoy beaver tails, which is like a flatbread pastry. Super good, dude.
Yeah, a flatbread pastry sounds delicious to me.
Yeah,
maybe I guess
it was really good. I was really quite pleased with it. Yeah, I was like 20 miles into the western corner of Ontario. And as you guys know, Ontario's very large. So there were a lot of people who were like, why didn't you come say hi to me? And it was like, because I didn't have 3 days to drive across Canada. It was a good time. I turned 34.
You're ancient now.
Feel old. Yeah. I woke up on the morning of my 34th birthday and my knee just literally groaned. And I was like, that's about right.
Just makes sense. Adds up.
So that makes sense. Yeah. It was great though. I have an amazing fiance who went out of her way to put up with me for 4 straight days. It was great, man. The couple of days off were great, and I was keeping an eye on the comment section of our shows to see if I could win any of those. It finally took you picking goofy Florida Panther roster.
Liking the Florida way too much for you to W home on that.
That's exactly it, man. Finally I get to win a poll. Brad, Z got the plain beaver tail. It was good. I got the strawberry cheesecake one because if you put strawberry and cheesecake in anything, I'm like,
you're just on it.
It's just like one of those things. So
yeah,
really, it was awesome. Highly recommend if anybody else. I thought beaver tails were an Ontario thing, but apparently they have them in some other places in Canada. If you come across them, they're great. It's a good little pastry.
There you go. Go get yourself a beaver tail.
Yeah, it was awesome though, man. Got to see a little bit more of the kind of the scenery in the area, and just relaxed. You know, we had such a hard go of it for a while there that even now it's still like I still feel like we're coming down a little bit.
Yeah, you can actually go outside and stuff.
Yeah, well, you know, like it's like when you get to the end of like a long day and your battery's on like 7%, and when you get home and then you plug that thing in, the first like 5%, you're like, oh my god, it's already gone up 5%, and you're like, yeah, this will be recharged in no time, and then you look at it and you're like, oh right, there's still 88% to go.
Not even close yet. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of how I feel right now, man. Is there's still 88% to go, but it's moving in the right direction.
Definitely.
What about you, dog? What'd you do?
I spent 3 days cutting all the hair off my head. Clearly, it had to go. It was time. It was too unruly at this point, so it'll be back soon enough. It grows quick. I'm not too worried about it. But I didn't do a whole lot. Played a little golf, hung out at home, did a staycation a little bit, played all my video games, enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. Like we got like increasingly lazier as the days went on because Z took a couple days off work too. So it was nice, man. It was nice. It was good.
Definitely,
it was good just to hang out. I missed everybody in chat though.
Yeah, we're glad to be back with all y'all in chat. Time.
Missed all of our peeps telling us how stupid we are.
True. Can't wait for more of that.
I was genuinely glad that the hockey logo one was not live. because I knew that there were going to be people like we already had them, like people on Twitter who were like, "How did you not include whichever one they really liked?" And it was just like, we only had so many to pick from here, guys. And then the people who thought you and I were morons because it was very clearly a claymore on the back of the Glasgow clan, and I'm like, oh, okay. Today I learned that that's a claymore hilt. I didn't. Okay, I don't really know anything about swords.
That's all I know about that draft. Is my strategy worked and I took home the win. So,
well,
yeah, the Mooterus wouldn't have made it anywhere near that draft, Cygnus. So, I think our rules were just fine according to that logo.
Yeah,
but anyway. Today's topic, we're looking at the Avs off-season moves, the best, the worst of them, a little bit of everything in between. I know the move I like the least, AJ. What is your least favorite move from, well, I guess not necessarily least favorite, but what is the move you think is the worst from the Avs this offseason?
So, I think the layup here is Curtis McDermott.
Yeah.
But because I think Curtis McDermott is going to play potentially such a limited role on the team, like, I think that there's a realistic possibility that Curtis McDermott doesn't play more than 25 games.
I think that is definitely a possibility. My problem there then is the Avs still gave up a 4th-round pick for a guy that's going to play that little.
So there's an article coming out either today or tomorrow that I'm writing right now, kind of about this same topic. But I put in here trading anything at all for Curtis McDermott was bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Was a bad thing. Like giving up any kind of draft pick at all is problematic, but I think the worst move is probably the one not made, and I think that it was probably not finding a way to keep Saad at that kind of money.
Sure. Or name a similar replacement for that role.
It was just such a reasonable deal that he ended up on, and it was exactly the kind of deal that when they acquired him, we said, look, we don't think that market's going to be robust. If they can get him in this range, they have to find a way to do it, and they did not.
Yeah.
And part of that...
it seemed like, but...
Right, and part of that was I think they backed themselves into... They didn't really back themselves into a corner. They played a game of chicken and they lost.
Yep.
They played a game of chicken with the goaltender carousel, and it just didn't, Yep. Maybe not a game of chicken, but maybe what's the thing that you play where when the music stops you have to pick a seat, and if you
musical chairs.
Okay, musical chairs. Yes. And they were very, very, very close to the music stopping, and they literally got the last seat. But it was like
Edmonton out of a seat, basically.
It was like they got the last seat because they were like, "Hey, Arizona, we're going to give you a crisp $100 bill
to turn that music back on for a couple seconds.
To give us that chair, okay?" And Arizona was just like, "Well, we want $200," and so the Avs gave them $250.
Yeah. Because Edmonton is going to give him $225.
Yeah, I think that's probably... I think the worst move is that they lost Timmins. Because a cost-efficient... Especially when he signed a 2-year deal at $850K.
Yeah.
Like, that is a... That is a very cost-efficient...
Yeah, I mean, just look at if they still have Timmins at $850K, they're saving over $1 million compared to what they're paying Ryan Murray, right? So,
yeah, and the Murray thing, like if they'd done Saad, Murray wouldn't have happened, and their defense would be really thin,
for sure. But
I think that they're going to have trouble. They've got the big three on defense, and then they've got Bowen Byram, who I am fully confident is going to be an impact player for the Avs this year. But I don't have that same confidence that Colorado's forward core is going to be able to sustain the losses of both Brandon Saad and Jonas Donskoy, and Saad's the better player and is on a very reasonable deal in St. Louis, and so that one hurt a little.
It's still, and we've talked about this before, at least for the top six, it's a big gamble on Alex Newhook being legit, right?
Yep.
For the bottom six, it gets a little bit murkier about how are you replacing Donskoy like depth, which, I mean, we could talk about that move too. I'm sure we'll come back around to the Timmins thing because the rest of that move, I think we feel a lot better about than Timmins specifically. But
yeah,
do you even count losing Donskoy in expansion as a move?
No, I don't, because that wasn't really their choice.
They were going to lose someone, full stop, right?
Yeah, they weren't looking to, like, it could have been a lot worse. Just what I'll say.
Sure, that's a fine way to put it.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. So I'm just not worried about it.
All right. Well,
had they lost JT Compher instead of Jonas Donskoy, I know everybody would be happier, but I think it's going to be funny when Compher has a better year than Donkey does this year.
Compher goes back to his 30-point seasons, and
Donskoy's not a second-line player and doesn't have a center and stops shooting the best that he's ever shot in his career.
You watch the numbers crater a little bit in Seattle, and it's like,
I just wonder. His underlying numbers in Colorado were so awful, Donskoy's, and his production was so driven by percentages he had never done in his career.
Yep.
That will be fascinated to see how that balances with the lack of talent around him, but the expected increased role.
I mean, yeah.
Because you know how it is. There are some guys that'll put up a 45-point season, and you'll be like, look, that was totally fine. But they had to play high up in the lineup, and they had to get fed a ton of minutes in order to get there. And, like their points per 60 are actually super, super low.
Right.
They were no way efficient players. So,
I mean,
you know how it goes. There are guys out there that do that.
There are, but certainly Donskoy's underlyings don't point to him being that type of player, really.
Yeah.
Particularly against tougher competition.
Yeah. On every line he was on, he was pretty clearly the third best player.
Right.
Until this year when he
literally could not miss with his shot.
Well, and then this year when he ended up on that Nichushkin Joe Donskoy line.
Sure.
Where, is Nichushkin or Donskoy better? They're just different. They do different things.
It vastly depends on the situation at that point, but
definitely, I would say both guys are better than Jost right now.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty easy one. But, Jost could be a half a point per game player this year, and then things change. But
straight up. So anyway, it doesn't really fit into best or worst, but is part of the conversation.
Yeah, but it does shape why losing Saad maybe was such a negative for the Avs, because they also lost Donskoy, and now they're kind of left with this hole in the middle of their lineup on the forward side that externally they chose not to fill.
Yep.
So we can take our first break there with Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get it down at the DNVR bar. I was down there just the other night talking to a fan who came all the way out from Belgium, which, by the way, you Euro people are crazy. If they can come that far to the bar, y'all in the States can come down to the bar at some point as well. Hope to see you there. But get your Breck Brew, 8 different kinds on tap at the bar or at your local liquor store if you are here in the States. So jump on it. Drink some. They're awesome. You're awesome. Everybody's awesome. And then head over to Green Mountain Dental Group. Make sure your teeth are nice and clean, looking good, kind of like mine. They are awesome as well. They're just 15 minutes from downtown Denver. You can get in there super easy. They're super family friendly. Anything you need to get done. We've had a bunch of people switch over, and they've all said it's a great dental experience. So give it a try. When you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam, you'll get a free Sonicare toothbrush as well, just to make taking care of your teeth at home that much easier. They're also, cheap and affordable. So when you save a little bit of cash, maybe you spend it on a DNVR annual membership as well. They got you covered with our coverage for a year, obviously, but they also give you a shirt. You get big beers at the bar. You get access to the DNVR lounge, all sorts of awesome stuff. It's cool. We do good work here at DNVR, I like to think. So if you like our podcast, if you want to see what AJ writes all the time, what Evan writes all the time on the site, if you want to support us, DNVR membership, great way to do it. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. AJ, as we're moving through this list, you kind of end up in the murky middle a little bit, I think, where there are a bunch of moves that I don't think you can definitively say are super good or particularly bad. But how do you start working up the hierarchy of moves for the Avs this offseason?
So I think going from the Phantom move not made, which is such a cop out for me, to the McDermott deal, I think then you probably go with the Kemper deal. Because
do we want to wrap the Grubauer walking into that as well? Or is that its own thing that you're more okay with?
Yeah, I guess you could put like goaltender situation.
Sure, as a whole.
Yeah, in one big move. And I would probably have that there. And honestly, that's probably if they hadn't gotten a goaltender as good as Darcy Kemper, and a guy that I super duper believe in is going to have a great year here. Yeah, but the process that they got there is a really big problem for me.
The negativity is more about how the bread got made on this one than the results.
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely a lot more of a process concern for me than it was that they got Darcy Kemper, because the fact that they got Darcy Kemper, I think, allays any of my concerns about next year's team. Had they not had Darcy Kemper and they had to, what would their move have been? What goalie would they have gotten? What else? We don't know what the plan was post Kemper, but it went Philip Grubauer, and then it went Freddie Anderson, and then it went Darcy Kemper, and then it went question marks.
Given the price they paid, it may legitimately have been Darcy Kemper or bust.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Edmonton, who lost out on the Kemper sweepstakes, have done nothing, and look content to go run it back again with
aging goaltenders.
With Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen and Alex Stalock.
Which I can't, and they signed Smith to a 2-year deal, right? So that one particularly is wild to me. But
it's cheap enough that Mike Smith could have easily been usurped there by a legit star.
Definitely. He could have been the backup, and that Mikko Koskinen deal was bad from the minute they signed it. But
yeah, I remember. I remember making fun of that deal, and an Edmonton fan being like, "You're an idiot." Okay.
Well,
it turns out signing long-term deals based on 18 games of play is very iffy.
And the Avs would have been in an even worse spot than that, realistically, if they had not gotten Kemper. They'd have been going into the season at that point, if doing nothing, with Francouz, who hasn't played a game in over a year, and Jonas Johansson as their backup at that point.
That was not going to happen.
Right. They would have done something, but we just don't know what.
Yep. So, really, the Kemper thing, look, they come out with Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper rules. There are fair questions about can he hold up physically. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how all that shit goes. We'll see how it all goes. But with Kemper, at least they have confidence that they walked out of there with a legit stud of a starting goaltender. Now, how they got there, let's get into a little bit because it's a little ugly. They go to free agency with Philip Grubauer. Free agency opens, and you know how it goes. Within the first 2 hours of free agency, almost all of the major decisions get made.
And Grubauer isn't one of them.
Philip Grubauer is still on the market. He's still deciding. The goaltenders are taking jobs. Freddie Anderson signing in Carolina. Carolina in like the blink of an eye went from Nedeljkovic, Reimer, and Mrazek to
flipped all of their goaltenders.
Yeah, to I don't even remember who the other Carolina goalie is. It was Freddie Anderson and
I want to say Bernier, but I don't think that's correct.
He went to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Antti Ranta.
Ah, yes, the other
goaltender. That's where Antti Ranta ended up. Right. So that the goaltenders are going around and around and around.
Yeah.
And Grubauer is still there. So Colorado's looking at it and they're saying, okay, well, who are the other realistic suitors here? Who's going to pay the price for this guy?
Yeah.
And who's going to pay? So who's going to pay the price for this guy? It ends up being a surprise in Seattle.
Yeah.
Because Seattle had already settled their goaltender situation. They signed Chris Driedger. They got him in expansion and signed him. They got Vanacek and signed him. They took a younger guy in Joey Decord and kept him from Ottawa.
Ended up flipping Vanacek back to Washington.
Right after that was
Grubauer, yeah.
Right, that was after signing Grub. Right. So it was like the Avs were looking at the market and they were doing the same math that we were doing live on air, where we were like, okay, is Seattle really going to do this?
How many teams are left? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were like Seattle. It was like, okay, well, they're going to roll in with a good defense and potentially a really good duo of two guys who are in their 20s fighting, who are in their mid-20s who are fighting for starting goaltender job.
Yep.
They're in a great position here because they can figure out which one of those guys is actually going to
work for them. I mean,
actually
play the hot hand, whatever. Yeah, they have versatility there.
And then they're in the position a year from now of, hey, maybe if both of these guys play really well, we can move Vanacek for a first, or move Vanacek for a second, or we can do whatever, right? Like you get involved in next year's goaltender carousel, where you then capitalize on that market by selling that guy off. And so it was like, okay, are they like their pursuit of this is kind of odd. And then they basically gave him the 6x6 deal that we were afraid of Colorado giving him.
Yep.
And let's be real here. You and I were comfortable just saying no thanks to Philip Grubauer on that kind of deal.
At that price, at that term, it is what it is, right?
We just there was a line in the sand there, and
that you're in the same spot as if you had brought back Brandon Saad, if you signed Grubauer to that contract. You end up with probably no Ryan Murray on this team. Potentially even hard for the Avs to bring in someone like Helm if they're signing Grubauer to that big of a raise. And
yeah, I mean, it just looks different.
On that side of it, it didn't add up. And I know you've talked about the other side of this before a little bit too, and probably why the way this deal got done hurt so much is that because the Avs were waiting on that Grubauer situation, they missed opportunities to have talks with someone like Freddie Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, look, Freddie Anderson on a bounce-back deal of $4 million, that's almost a full two less than what Grubauer got paid. Yep. It's only $500K more than what they're going to end up
with Kemper. Yep.
With Kemper. So it's really like that. I mean, it was a good backup plan, but Freddie didn't want to wait. Understandably so. Because if a team, maybe Freddie would have waited, maybe Freddie Anderson would have waited if it hadn't been a team as good as Carolina called. Because Carolina had the same. They would have had the same kind of basic pitch of like, hey, come rebuild your value, play for a good team here, and maybe give you a longer deal next year.
And Carolina or not, like the goalies know the score too. They're in the musical chairs game as well. They don't want to be the goalie left without a chair. So
right, and that's where that's where those guys have to make decisions. So they made up their mind. Grubauer went to Seattle, and that kind of put the Avs in a position where it was like, all right, it's Darcy Kemper or
nothing. Yeah,
who knows?
Yep. And that's part of the reason they ended up paying so much for him.
Yeah, definitely. And like the first round pick, we were all comfortable. We talked for a full year about giving up a first round pick for Darcy Kemper. Like, we were all comfortable with that price tag. It was the Timmins inclusion that really hurt.
Yeah, Timmins hurt. The third is a nothing pick, basically.
Yeah, the third is if they win the cup and Kemper's in net, then great.
Then you don't care about that third at all.
Yeah,
that converts. Yeah.
Oh, what? Otherwise, they keep that pick. But the other, it was the Timmins inclusion is what hurt it. Yep. And it's not that Timmins is an all-star or anything, because every time we talk about this, there's always people who come in and like, oh, you guys are pretending like Connor Timmins is amazing. It's like, look, the guy is better than a third-pairing defenseman making $850K. He's a cost-efficient young player who you can reasonably expect is going to outplay his contract. That's exactly what you need when your roster gets expensive. That's exactly it.
As a team that is trying to win now, realistically, giving them Timmins is the Avs giving a player up directly off of their roster instead of a first-round pick, futures type of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, maybe Arizona wanted a roster player no matter what. We don't know for sure, but even if that Timmins was a Hellison instead as the Avs, you would feel a lot better about it.
If it was Hellison, man, I mean, if it was Justin Barron, it would have been a deep cut. It would have hurt.
But no immediate impact on the team.
But it would have, right. There wouldn't have been really any question.
Yep. So.
But I think if it had been Barron, I would feel pretty much the same.
About as bad, yeah. With Hellison, I think it's easy, slam dunk. But
yeah, with Hellison, you're like, okay.
Yep.
Totally get it. I'm good with it. Have fun.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yep.
But see, the thing with Barron is still all potential.
The dude has played 7 professional games. Really, we have no idea what that dude is in pro hockey.
Right. And Connor Timmins had shown, like, Connor Timmins was there. Like, he was there.
Like, don't get us wrong. Last Friday, we both had Barron in our top 5 prospects, so we believe in him, but he's not an NHLer yet. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're talking in which one of those guys would have helped Colorado this year more. The answer is Connor Timmins. But no, Barron played 7 games in the AHL.
And he played well in those 7 games, but it's still 7 games.
A couple of things, and we've talked about this before, a couple of things. Last year's AHL was severely compromised.
Yep.
A lot of AHL veterans didn't play that like make that league so competitive is that you get all those TJ Tynans, those quadruple A players. Because of taxi squads, the AHL, the quality of the AHL was way down last year, which is one reason why you want to be super careful about trying to draw any strong conclusions about players in the AHL last year, including Jean-Luc Foudy. It's really important to include him in this because it's not just it would be super hypocritical if I was like, careful about Justin Barron's 7 games and then being like, Jean-Luc Foudy's great. Look at his AHL season. It's the AHL. Think of how many players were on taxi squads last year that were AHL regulars. that would have been. I mean, it's just the quality of that league was way down because of that. So there's a major component of just be really careful about trying to buy too much stock into AHL games last year. Sure. And with Barron, it was 7 of them. So
even in a regular year, that's not very many.
Unless, I mean, like you look at the games that Newhook played, and Newhook was not like, oh, he just had a couple of good, like Alex Newhook was very clearly done with the AHL 2 games in.
And there's things that you can look at that go beyond the statistics, right? You watch Newhook skate around in an AHL game and you're like, yeah, he's just better than this league already.
Yeah.
With Barron, his stats are good. He looked good. Did he look done with the AHL? No.
Yeah, well, there's a long way to go for Justin Barron still. Although I am very interested to see what he looks like in training camp in preseason. Very interested to see. So that'll be all good and well. That'll be exciting. The point is that the Avs, it was a deep cut to get to the Darcy Kemper resolution, but that Darcy Kemper's as good as he is makes that A-okay. You don't want to do that again next year because you don't have another Connor Timmins just sitting there. You don't have a first round pick. Or I guess they've got next year's the year after's first round pick that they could do it again with, but it's too expensive for them to do multiple times. You just can't keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, what is not too expensive to do multiple times is getting all your friends together and ordering some Haefele Cattle Company. Get a $200 order, you get free shipping on it. You also get 10% off every time you use DNVR 10 on the website. Also, you can get the Wagyu burger down at the bar, which I was told once again, somehow I'm underselling it, even though I pump it up as hard as I possibly can. So I guess it's very, 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 very good.
Guys, it's just a great burger.
Yeah. So get it down at the bar. Get yourself some Haefele Cattle Company. Also, if you didn't know, we have our new menu live at the bar, by the way. So also,
I'm excited to come back and try it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of awesome stuff on the menu now. So come on down, give our food a try. Hit up Haefele Cattle Company as well. Then you can get yourself some Strava Craft coffee too, down at the bar, or order online with code DNVR25 to get 25% off your first order with Strava online. It's super cheap coffee at that point. Plus the CBD, if you're an old man like AJ, it'll help with the joint pain and then the groaning knees, perhaps. So
true.
There you go. Can help that out a little bit. Check that out. If you want the actual THC content, that's what Solace Meds is for. They have 4 locations in Colorado, including one just down from the bar. Another place you can order online with code DNVR20 to get 20% off. Schedule your pickup, but they do have great deals in store as well on select products ranging from 15 to 25% off. You can go in, shop to your pleasure, find what you want, find your cannabis products, get it, head on home, do whatever you want with them, basically. Check them out as well. Solace Meds, they're awesome. You also, if you go to the Wheat Ridge location, you get a free King Cone or Solace bar. So jump on them. Get free stuff. Always a good thing. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. AJ, are we starting to move into the moves you're happier with from Colorado here? Or rather, should we put right in the middle? Is that just Darren Helm being the most average move in the history of hockey?
So Darren Helm is like right dead set in the middle of this is completely fine. It's 1 year. It's $1 million. He's a 4th line player. It's extremely fine. Whatever.
It exists. It will go fine, and you'll move on.
I've told this story before, but I thought Darren Helm was dead. I had him mixed up with somebody else, and so when Z was like, hey, the Avs signed Darren Helm, I was like, the dead guy?
Nope.
Whoops. My bad. So, you know.
He will exist in the Avs lineup and do things.
That's his bar. That he has to outperform a dead guy.
Pretty low bar.
Good. Cool. Done. And then I would say the move after that is probably Ryan Murray.
Yeah.
I would be a lot higher on the Ryan Murray thing if I just trusted him to stay healthy. Because I think Ryan Murray's just a rock-solid NHL player. But maybe more importantly, he's a great fit for them.
I hear that, and I actually agree with it probably, but this is another one for me where I think it would be higher if it was something they actively pursued a little bit harder instead of a move where it was like, oh, they ended up with $4 million left and they just kind of did this to spend some cash, which don't get me wrong. Excited about Ryan Murray, the player, much like AJ, if he can stay healthy, but it didn't seem like a move the Avs were actively targeting very much until they just had money left over.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, and now I always hate these assumptions because players have a say in free agency.
Of course, yeah.
Kind of the whole point. But Ryan Murray on 1 year, $2 million, or Yanni Hakanpää at 3 years, $1.5 million. Now, Ryan Murray's the better player.
If he's healthy.
But Hakanpää doesn't have nearly the same level of question marks.
Yep.
And that kind of cost efficiency would have made it so that you're not really ever concerned about it.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, and you get into that conversation of Murray, too. If he plays up to what he's capable of and stays healthy, he's probably pricing himself off the team next season.
It's a good point because if Ryan Murray stays healthy, has a good solid, say he puts up 25 points for the Avs this year, and he's a good PK guy.
Yep.
Like, how is another team not going, okay, he's been healthy 2 years in a row now. He's into free agency. He's coming off a great year. Let's pay this guy.
Right.
Like, let's he's turned a corner. Bam. He's fixed everything. There's no concerns anymore. He's great. And somebody's going to pay him. Look at this market as a great example of, look, teams are just going to pay anybody that has a pulse and can play defense. Yeah.
It's all, and it's been like this for years. Defense has always come at a premium price in this league.
Like Patrick Nemeth got a totally fine 3-year deal.
Yep.
At $2.5 million. The Tucker Poolman somehow got a 4-year deal.
Yeah, 2.5 as well.
Like, we're talking like some serious. Some real money here got paid out to really limited players. If Ryan Murray
pairing guys, yeah.
If Ryan Murray lives up to his potential this year and plays in a really big role and is really good for the Avs, there's got to be
someone will give him like an Ian Cole deal or something.
Yeah, and there's got to be a temptation for the Avs to try and bring him back, but the realistic end of this is that he prices himself out.
Yep. I think so too.
And from an Avs perspective, you're probably totally okay with that because Justin Barron is in your system.
Yep.
And you do expect that if Justin Barron has the year we all hope in the AHL, he makes that jump next year and Justin Barron replaces Ryan Murray.
And that would be pretty easy and cheap.
Right. And that's why I really like the Murray. That's why the Murray deal is ahead of the Darren Helm deal, is because it's very similar, but the upside is a lot higher.
Way
higher. Yeah. So that's where I like the Ryan Murray signing a lot. He was one of the guys on free agency day that I said, this guy really makes a lot of sense, and I keep forgetting he exists.
Yep. So we have the Avs internal deals and the Ryan Graves trade left.
Yeah. Of the Avs internal deals, let's put Jost at the low end of this one.
Yep.
It's fine.
Didn't
2
hurt
years.
him.
Yeah, 2 years, $2 million. It's
right at the top range of what we've expected, what we've been saying all summer, basically.
It is a little more expensive than I thought it should have been. But on a 2-year deal, you don't really usually pay much of a price for that. On 2-year deals with players who are actively getting better.
And the reality of this deal is, if he plays well this year, it's going to look great. If he plays poorly, it's going to look bad. The Avs are going to find out who Tyson Jost really is this year.
Yeah, I mean, James Neal is a whole other.
Pass on that one. But
it's, we'll see
with Jost how it ends up.
Yeah, like I don't. The only people who feel strongly about Tyson Jost, the hockey player, are the people that absolutely hate him and think he's the worst and blah 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 blah, and who basically just completely fucking ignored last season. But that's, it's on Jost to prove that it was legit and that he can actually string together quality seasons.
Yep.
And be a legit NHL player. Like, he has to do it. So his deal, it's fine. It's okay. Got to live up to it. It's more expensive than I would have liked, but it's okay.
Landy deal next.
Yeah, and then let's do the Graves deal, and then we can
do the trade first. Sure.
Yeah.
Which, you have to start the Graves deal with the context of he was going to get picked by Seattle if he was in Colorado still.
Look at how they built their defense. They were taking Ryan Graves.
Yeah. And
everybody knew they were taking Ryan Graves. It's no big deal.
They shipped him off.
So they didn't have a second round pick. They got a second round pick, and in light of
that being Sean Barron's,
and more so in light of the fact that they traded next year's first and the second was already gone, that second round pick actually becomes pretty important.
Sure.
Because now they really they have hollowed out their draft classes 2 years in a row, and it will end up being 3 years in a row at the end of next year that they've had very small draft classes.
Yeah, which they did manage to rebuild this year's draft class, at least in the top 100 a little bit. But
right, and they did a find, they got some players that whatever, we'll see, but they really need those guys to hit now, and so that became a really important pick for that reason, because getting and look, capitalizing on Ryan Graves' value, they were going to lose that guy for nothing. They needed a little bit of the money, and they at the time, replacing Ryan Graves wasn't really a big concern. Connor Timmins was still around, Bowen Byram's still around. He was coming off of a series against Vegas where Ryan Graves, that series was supposed to be tailor-made for Ryan Graves because he's big and he's strong and he hits people and he hulks around and he blocks shots and he brings that edge, right, that the Avs so badly needed. And Ryan Graves got crushed in that series.
Yep.
And the Avs were just like, look, he's really well liked. We can get something for him. They got a second round pick. That's all good and well. The big thing here, Mikhail Maltsev.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have super crazy high expectations for Mikhail Maltsev.
But the dude looks like an NHLer.
But we'll see. I mean, 9 points in 33 games in New Jersey. He's playing in their bottom line. He's 6'3". He skates really well. He looked fine in the games that I watched him. Not an overwhelming talent.
But he's also 23, and you can drop him into your bottom six and see what happens.
Yeah. Like he's in the final year of his ELC, so he's costing you less than $1 million, and it was just good business. The deal was just good business all around. They were going to lose this guy for nothing. It cleared up $3 million that they could replace. It cleared off a player who had value, and then, they needed to move a little bit of money because they knew they were going to have to pay to keep some of their cats, and that's what they did. That helped clear the way for them comfortably being able to re-sign Landeskog and Makar, and at least make the run at Grubauer. And then, and just losing Donskoy for nothing, that sucks. But with the Graves thing, it worked great.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand the losing Donskoy for nothing on top of Graves is what helped them free up the cap, right?
Yeah.
Like, freeing up Graves $3 million on top of losing Donskoy, all of a sudden they have $7 million to play with.
Right, and that's why one of the reasons why the Graves deal is as high as it is because they lost a good player. They got a guy that might be able to help them, that they have high hopes for. Look, I trust Colorado's pro scouting staff at this point. They've done a good job finding guys. It's the same reason why I'm nervous about just completely writing off Curtis McDermott. The scouting staff sees something there. Maybe Curtis McDermott as a forward is totally fine and acceptable. Whatever, we'll see. But with Maltsev, I think that there's real hope that he's a legit NHL player, that he's an actual guy that can help them. And it's also not hard to see with Maltsev, with Helm, with Logan O'Connor, maybe with Curtis McDermott, they're trying to up the physicality that they're getting out of their fourth line that they didn't get last year.
Yep.
That they didn't get, with
someone
O'Connor
like Calvert, who was
O'Connor
out.
was hurt.
Yeah.
Calvert missed most of the year. That's not really what Belmar did. Belmar's like a face-off PK specialist guy, but he wasn't really a banger. He didn't really get in there and throw the body very much. He worked hard.
I mean, none of them really are, right? Like even someone like Comfer, he can be pesty, but he's not going to blow anybody up with a hit.
Right. And Comfer's going to have a totally different.
He's a third liner plus this year potentially, but
Comfer is super. His bounce back this year is super, super important. They need that to happen.
Yep.
That can't be it would be great if this guy would figure it out. They need that $3.5 million. He's got to at least be like a $3 million-ish player, like a $2.5 million-ish player. Like he has to at least
25 points, something.
Dude, that's like bottom line of what they've got to get out of him.
Yep, agreed.
So the Graves deal, very good, smart business, and not just a draft pick, but they got an NHL player as well.
Yep, and they happen to pick a guy we both like with the draft pick. So
yeah, always helps.
Yeah,
it always helps in your immediate oh hey, we really like this guy.
Not bad. So the two things left are the Landy deal and the Makar deal.
Yeah.
The Landy deal, obviously, it's a weird one to break down value on because there's certainly an emotional connection to Landy and the Avalanche being one and the same organization, basically, with Landy being the captain for as long as he was. It was a little stressful, but they got the deal done in the end.
Yeah, hit a couple bumps more than was expected.
Yep.
But they got it.
It's done. It's for 8 years. You can have a conversation about the last handful of years on that deal and if they're going to be great or not. But at the end of the day, they brought back a core piece that in the immediate future is going to continue doing what he does for this hockey team.
Yeah, and look, we've got Zach in the comments has written a couple of different paragraphs in the show today about how the Avs just haven't been able to replace some of the lost production. with Saad and Donskoy and all that, and it's true. Like they have it, but the big thing is that there was no replacing Gabe Landeskog. There was nothing that they could do on the market to replace those guys.
Yep.
Had they had that $7 million to play with, they'd probably keep Brandon Saad.
Most likely.
And is Saad your Landeskog replacement? He's just not as good.
You got worse if you did that, yeah, for sure.
And then whatever they did with the leftover money, who knows? But it was not going to be. I don't know. It was just they couldn't lose him.
Yep.
Not and they couldn't lose the player. They couldn't lose the person. That was their captain. That was their heart. Their soul is the guy that's helped establish the culture that they want to continue. Like, they have built themselves. They're fun to play for. The word is out amongst players in the league. Colorado's a place to be right now. And it's a good, competitive, and fun team. And it's just not. They couldn't survive that, man. That's the way I put it.
Try and rebuild that identity in the middle of their window.
Yeah,
would have been very difficult for sure.
Yeah, there would have been all kinds of alterations that had to be made that maybe they work and maybe they don't, and I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, we'll see.
Yeah,
they didn't. They couldn't let that one happen, and that meant going 8 years. That's fine. It sets up for what should have happened, which is that Gabe Landeskog is probably a lifelong Av, and there's probably never going to be another Avs player that wears 92.
Yep.
That's just where this is. That's where this contract says that everybody involved wants to end up.
Correct.
So they could easily get exactly what they want. Like that's what all the parties involved clearly wanted with an 8-year deal at $7 million. And the $7 million was right at the number that we talked about was appropriate for him, just based on the market and the comparables and blah, 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 blah. But it's just...
The 8 years got done, and now Landy and the Avs will be synonymous forever, basically.
Yep, and you just had to keep him. You could not... That was not a contract that you could lose a guy over $500K.
Yep.
You know, if he was going to get a 7-year offer, and he was going to... You know, he was going to get $9.5 million from the Blues or something, then yeah,
you tip your cap and you say it is what it is. But
you just be like, look, we hate this, but you have to take that money, man.
Can't pay him close to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we all understand that you've got to go get that. You've got to get that bread while the bread's there for the kitten. And that's all good and well, but that wasn't the case. He wasn't going to get an offer like that.
Yep.
From what I heard, the max number that I was able to dig up from teams that were supposedly interested was right in the $8 million range. But because the Avs added on the 8th year, which other teams couldn't do, the Avs were able to basically eliminate that.
Yep. So the Avs got it done with Landy. And then there's also the Cale Makar deal, which $9 million for 6 years that felt fine when it was signed and then got better by the day as teams made decisions to sign defensemen to insane contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Avs, I think, feel pretty darn good about that deal. Maybe the one shortcoming of it is it only buys one UFA year, I believe. So
look, that would have been the only shortcoming the day that it was signed.
Yeah.
But the fact is that right now, before any other contracts come in, right now, Cale Makar is set to be the 7th highest paid defenseman at the start of the 2022-23 season.
The guy who finished second in Norris voting this year, by the way.
Yeah. So that deal has already
become cheaper, relatively.
That deal has already become value for the Avs because of what other teams have valued their defensemen at.
Yep.
They valued their defensemen in the price range of Cale Makar without those players being Cale Makar. That's advantage Colorado right there. That was a good deal that, just based on how this summer has gone, has a really good chance now to become a fantastic deal.
Yep.
An unbelievable. I never thought that a $9 million contract would be a steal. But if the cap goes up really at all in those 6 years,
it's just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And think about it. He's already the 7th highest paid defenseman. 6 years from now, when he goes into free agency, he could be what? 15?
20?
16?
Yeah.
Like, he could be in a range where you're just like, this is so stupid. I don't think it will be in the range of where McKinnon is. Where
probably not, yeah.
Yeah, Makar was just too good, whereas McKinnon wasn't.
Right. I mean, McKinnon's deal was arguably the best contract in the league, full stop. But
yeah. Like right now, Nathan McKinnon is the 28th highest paid center.
Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Although that does include a guy like Ryan Kessler still on that list.
Sure. But that brings up a whole other point in itself.
True.
That at one point Ryan Kessler got paid more money than Nathan McKinnon.
Yep. I mean, UFAs, baby.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you look at it, that's why that Makar deal is so good. Is that by the time it ends, by the time he's eligible after that 5th year, when he's eligible for his next contract, there's a very, very good chance now that deal is...
It's blank check levels of ridiculous.
I mean, that this deal, the current deal, the one they just signed, is...
just a steal, yeah.
Yeah. You're sweating. Oh, man, we wish we could have... The not getting him on 8 years is gonna you're gonna feel that a lot
for
more.
A $5 million raise all of a sudden.
Yeah, straight up, man. It's gonna be it could be a really big money deal. And although you might say that's where 8 years might have actually helped him.
Yep.
Because the cap would have had time to go up
even
and up
higher,
and up.
Yeah. All of a sudden, max contract is $17 million instead of 14 or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the cap. Right now, everybody's just guessing.
Yeah, it's all
the selling the ads on jerseys is going to help.
It'll push them in the right direction financially. Yep.
Yeah. Do you have any strong feelings about that? I know that's been jersey ads have been super taboo in the hockey world for years.
Like, in a perfect world, I would prefer jerseys without them, but it's never been a thing that's bothered me, really.
I mean, look, the European jerseys are hideous because of it. I think that's a great example of this is too far, this is stupid. But those leagues don't have the money that the NHL does.
The NBA already has their jersey logos on them, and nobody cares. Like...
Yeah, and the NHL ones are going to be a little bit bigger size-wise, but
the one I know I'm weird about this, but the one thing I will say is I very much prefer, if I was going to buy a jersey, to wear the exact same thing the players are wearing. So
you want the ad on your jersey?
Yes, I would want the ad on the jersey that I'm buying from like Altitude Authentics or something.
Yeah, okay.
I know I'm a weirdo in that regard, but
you might be alone in that one. I mean, I know it's the internet. You won't be alone, but
the 7 of us out here. Yeah.
I was gonna say this is your Tobias Fumke, there are dozens of us moment.
So, in any case, the ads don't bother me.
They don't bother me either, but I don't want it to look like the European League jerseys.
Right. It's a different story if your team's logo is surrounded by advertisements than one on the shoulder or whatever. But
that's too much, man. They're just hideous.
Yep. So
just hideous.
For now, it's fine, but maybe someday opinions will change.
Yeah, it's always, everybody always puts forth the slippery slope fallacy here. Where does it stop? And it's like, here. Let's stop here.
Yep. Does the jersey still look reasonable? Cool. Stop then.
I'm fine with them. This doesn't really bother me, but I know that I don't want significantly more. So let's stop here.
Yep. All right.
That won't be the case, though, because money is what it is. And at some point, it's like, oh, this is a way for us to boost the hockey-related revenue. And that means more money for players and more money for blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess a couple other quick news things before we get out of here. One, Dennis Gilbert signed $725K. Neat. Moving on.
Wasn't even on our list of moves.
Yep. Because...
AHL signing probably
relevant, yeah.
If he ends up playing for the Avs, another reason why the McDermott thing is stupid is that Dennis Gilbert was already that guy.
Yep, agreed. And then 2, we are 1 month away from the rookie showcase, which is officially announced now.
Hell yeah!
Should be a fun time down in Arizona.
There are tentative talks that Rudo and I will be driving down there together to both cover that.
Could be fun.
So if anybody is in the area in Arizona for that, maybe say what's up. Because that could be a good time. Oh, the NHL 20. I do not care about NHL 22.
Yeah, me either, to be honest. I played NHL 21 and was terrible at it.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, that was fun.
It's fun to play with people, for sure.
Yeah, it was fun when we gamed, but every time I tried to get better on my own, I just didn't enjoy it. I was like, nope, I just don't like this gameplay very much, man. It's not very fun.
Yeah, it's a sports game. You know what you're going to get out of it to a certain extent, but
yeah,
if they brought NHL 22 onto PC, I'd be more interested.
Yeah,
but
of course, we would be all over that.
In any case, we were over an hour now, so we're going to get out of here. Thank you, everyone watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. It's good to be back live with all y'all in the chat. We'll be back tomorrow. It's a Friday episode, so probably something fun, just messing around on a Friday. We hope to see you all there. But until next time, we will talk to you all later.